Welcome. I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Joe Murray, who is the Vice President of Health System Operations and Strategic Initiatives at the Mount Sinai Health System. It's an 8-hospital system network in New York City in the United States. Joe is responsible for the overall success and execution of strategic and operational priorities and works with key leaders across the entire 8-hospital health system to build a culture of improvement and problem solving throughout the Mount Sinai Health System. Joe's going to talk to us today about how Mount Sinai Health System took their lean transformation strategy and have it evolve through the pandemic and explore the role lean plays as they adapt to the new and dynamically changing post-COVID environment. Joe?
Great. Thank you so much, Alice, and thanks for the warm introduction. Before I get started today, I wanted to take the time to thank the Lean Enterprise Institute and all the organizers of the Lean Global Connection for the opportunity to speak today. And it's really an honor to be able to speak to the experience of Mount Sinai Health System within the sort of lens of lean transformation and what it felt like before, during, and after the pandemic. So for today's talk, I wanted to take the opportunity to give a vignette, as I mentioned, of what lean transformation looked like at Mount Sinai, and particularly the strategies and tactics that we're deploying to be able to meet our vision of lean and continuous improvement, and use the sort of pandemic as a center point to talk about what were the things that we were doing before, what were we doing during the pandemic, and how did we use a lot of the things we learned as an organization around lean transformation and lean behaviors and lean thinking during the pandemic, and then what is our evolving strategy as we sort of move forward into the new post-pandemic world. So before I get started, I did want to just do a really quick set of acknowledgements. I'm not going to go through everyone's single name. The real point of this slide is that that I wanted to thank all the champions, partners, and leaders in this work, because no one real person leads this work for our health system. I do have the honor today to speak on behalf of Mount Sinai Health System around what we're doing with lean transformation. So just wanted to acknowledge all the individuals who really champion this in our organization, and also wanted to give a special thanks to Alice Lee and the Lean Enterprise Institute for really guiding and advising us on this journey. We had started working together since 2016, so it's been such a great time working and partnering with them as an organization. So just to sort of captivate everybody today, I thought I'd use a tactic that I stole from our emergency management friends and colleagues in the organization, but starting with the sort of bottom line up front to really just sort of summarize what we're going to be talking about today. The first piece is our senior leadership team really sees and believes in the value of lean transformation. And I think that's something that isn't necessarily sort of common in all organizations, especially all health systems. So we're really at a good point in the sense that there is a belief in the work that we're doing with lean transformation, and there is senior leadership buy-in and champions that are constantly trying to sort of work on this and remove the barriers that are getting in our way. We know that when we properly educate, train, coach, and support the managers in our organization and the leaders that are leading continuous improvement in lean, they ultimately see the value of empowering and enable problem solving in our organization. And we do see the impacts and effects and results that you would expect to see when we do things the right way and we do improvement work with the right sort of mindset, with the right culture and the right tools. At this point, we're debating, our approach driven by a bunch of or a variability in perspectives on what lean transformation is. But, I'll gladly take that any day over, people who don't believe in the value of the work itself. So it's a great problem for us to have. As you'll see when I talk about who we are as an organization in a second, we're pretty sure the pace of change of transformation will be fast enough. And we think we're working on the right things, i.e. we see some good process measures and results, but really need to eventually understand the global outcome measures and if we're truly impacting the way we sort of deliver care to our patients from sort of a global level. And just for today's presentation, I do use the word continuous improvement synonymously with lean. It's just an internal branding for us as an organization. So just wanted to sort of get that out there. So a quick overview of Mount Sinai Health System to frame before I sort of jump into our lean transformation. We are a large organization in New York City. We have an annual revenue of about 9.3 billion. And as Alice mentioned, we have approximately 8 hospital campuses that span 3 of the boroughs in Manhattan, in New York City, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, and a hospital in Long Island. I'm not going to go through all of these other facts and figures, but we're a pretty big organization with 43,000 plus employees, 7,000 physicians, and 2,000 residents and trainees. And as you can see, we treat quite a bit of the population in New York City. Other interesting facts, again, not going to go through those, but we're an aged institution that's been around for a very long time. So you can imagine over time, we've had these sort of processes and mindsets of the way we do things that we're actively currently trying to change today. So things that were formed as early as, the late 1800s and just processes and workflows that were built on top of, the way we sort of thought about things back then. So just wanted to sort of frame what that looks like as what we look like as an organization. And really, I'll talk a little bit about both the sort of technical and social sides of lean transformation, but what we're really trying to accomplish is pretty simple and straightforward. Mount Sinai Health System will be an organization of daily problem seekers and daily problem solvers who are encouraged to practice scientific thinking and root cause problem solving in their work areas. So think of the managers managing an ICU or an inpatient unit, or the managers managing our janitorial and environmental services staff. Those are the people that we're encouraging them to problem solve in their work areas. And ultimately, it's so Mount Sinai Health System meets its multiple sort of missions and goals as an organization, so that we're durable and resilient, so that we adapt to change, and so that we can provide best-in-class care over the long term. So one more, sort of, I think, piece that's important to share with everyone. So as I mentioned, I'm going to speak a little bit to, from a global perspective, the various technical and social programs, as my good friends and colleagues at LEI like to remind us that lean is a very technical and social system. There's the technical tools and the tactics that we're trying to implement, and obviously the social aspects like the culture and environment that we have to manage. But this is true. This is our sort of core model for how we're driving improvement at the unit level. And I'm just going to sort of talk through these in a very sort of sequential fashion. Is we're really building on continuous improvement on top of our daily management processes in the organization. So one of the things that we're doing across the organization is really scaling our ability for all of our operational areas and services to do daily management and to use visual management as a way to, again, manage the sort of day and understand and build situational awareness to create stability around sort of the actual operational environment, and to make problems really sort of visible, right? So how do we sort of make problems visible? How do we track KPIs? How do we ensure that we know what's actually going on? And then over time, we build daily improvement and continuous improvement over those daily management processes. So the staff is expected to look at the sort of how things are working and to identify opportunities to improve performance. And then we coach improvement around that piece. So just a quick sort of vignette of what we're trying to do. And in a nutshell, the improvement that we've been doing, as I mentioned, the right way, has been working across the health system. So here's a quick snapshot of some of the things that we've improved as an organization. I'll just pick maybe 2 or 3 to just talk through, but we use daily management and continuous improvement to reduce the median length of stay for patients on a medicine unit by 1 day, just by understanding the sort of root causes to why patients weren't being discharged on time. A very simple thing that can happen on a sort of day-to-day basis, similar to discharge before noon, just looking at those sort of common challenges and barriers. And as you see, we've done other sort of things to reduce wait times and reduce time spent and burden of our staff looking for supplies. So all sort of a way of saying is we figured this out, right? No, not really. We'll probably never figure this out, but what I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides is we're striving, we're always sort of trying to figure this out, and we're striving for better. And that's really the sort of purpose of lean transformation at our health system. So just to give you a quick snapshot of what our lean transformation has looked like over the last couple of years. We first started in the late 2000s with Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma as sort of framed and taught back then, really in teaching people a very sort of complex way of looking at problems within our organization. We transitioned from that because there wasn't an appetite and the right champions in place to sort of expert-based continuous improvement. So leveraging industrial engineers and process experts to be able to redesign processes in our organization. We quickly realized that we did need to train and educate our organization around using some of these tools, but really didn't know where to start. So just started training in education and isolation. And at the same time, started adopting some of the larger sort of value stream improvement type work as an organization, leading Kaizen events, building a larger sort of expert-based continuous improvement team, and thinking that we could all sort of manage it and do it with that sort of alone as an organization. We spent those early years, trying to understand what continuous improvement and lean meant for us and building buy-in within our organization. And then I think, as we sort of spent, and a lot of other things happened in between those years, but as we started thinking about, what was missing, we quickly came to the fact that we needed to acknowledge, what lean leadership was and what the role of management was, and making sure that there was support for this and we were able to do this within our organization. And in 2017, we engaged the Lean Enterprise Institute to help us really fine-tune our strategy. And with that, we engaged our senior-most leaders in a retreat type event to really break down the sort of basics and simplicity of what lean transformation is, and got real good buy-in from an organization at that point. We realized that we needed to focus on executive development, so we engaged in LEI's Learning to See and started coaching and training a lot of our hospital presidents, our corporate service vice presidents and leaders, and all the people that are sort of key hospital administrators, and really valued the role of coaching and started to work heavily on the social side of lean. And then in 2018, we realized that daily management was something that we needed to do across our organization to build stability, really working on stability first, and then focusing on improvement itself. And then we also launched sort of an integrated approach to this as a health system. As you imagine, 8 hospitals has 8 different microcultures and probably more than that. But we started integrating an approach under the Continuous Improvement Academy. And then the pandemic happened, which I'll talk a little bit about what we did during the pandemic. But just to give everyone a frame of reference, here in New York, our health system alone had 2,076 patients admitted as a hospital. I wrote down some other facts and figures, but right around the time we had 2,076 patients, we were burning through 30,000 isolation gowns a day, 55,000 surgical masks a day, and 16,000 N95s as an institution. And then as that sort of passed, and I don't mean to sort of go through that very quickly, but 2020, when we started to see the surge decrease, we re-engaged in all of our lean work, and then really continued again integrating our approach, and that's where we are today. So lean during the pandemic, I'll talk about some of the really critical pieces for us that we were so thankful as an organization to have had been engaged in sort of developing our leaders, have been engaged around rolling out daily management, have spent a lot of time working on training managers and continuous improvement. And again, we have so much more to sort of go, but we got a pretty good start for those years before the pandemic. So the really sort of big piece that I think helped us from all of our sort of lean transformation was, our tiered huddles and daily management processes really helped us gain situational awareness at all levels of the organization. And we were so lucky to have those in place to be able to understand what our census looked like, to be able to get everyone on the page in terms of how many admissions were we expecting, did we need to sort of transfer patients throughout the hospitals to balance out the sort of demand and loads at each of our organizations, to be able to disseminate that there was a shortage of PPE, and to give people really quick updates. So that sort of connectivity we created from tiered huddles and daily management really helped us understand everything that was going on. The next two, sort of being process focused and lean leader behaviors, were absolutely critical. For many years, sort of down our lean transformation journey, our organization knew that we needed to design processes to the best of our ability. We also needed to leverage the ability to rapidly experiment and improve when possible. This was absolutely critical for clinical processes, our supply chain for COVID testing. I'll give an example, just the trying to figure out how to redo what sort of communicating with patients looked like in an environment where the staff needed to be separated from the patient because there was a chance to get infected with COVID, required a lot of really quick thinking and using devices like cell phones or telephones or microphones and setting up these visible barriers between our rooms that were never set up for this level of isolation. So all of that rapid experimentation was happening on our units. We had to convert our ability to sort of manage our PPE to a sort of hour by hour process of understanding how many N95 masks we were. And then even COVID testing, just working through those workflows to be able to test the thousands of patients that we were seeing, come through those sort of processes was critical. I think the other piece is that the lean leader behaviors really helped us, and really the piece around going to the workplace helped our staff morale tremendously. Seeing leaders on the sort of front line, knowing that they were there supporting them, not necessarily coaching them around problem solving and improvement, but addressing morale, encouraging this experimentation, saying it's okay to fail and trying to figure out what to do, really, I think kept everyone sort of sane in terms of, I think, the very sort of deep, dark places the organization was as they were seeing, 2,000 COVID patients in our hospitals, and really, again, reinforcing sort of patient-first thinking. And then, lean personnel were also deployed to support a lot of these operational gaps that were happening, and were used for things like predictive modeling, PPE monitoring, and again, supporting all of our clinical teams to be able to manage COVID patients. One great example was, we had never seen this usage of, medications, and we had never seen this usage of PPE, that we were able to quickly go and do quick observations in the actual sort of workplaces with the COVID patients there, and be able to say that, we're going to be burning through this many masks, this many gowns, this many gloves on a day-to-day basis, so that our supply chain teams could order the right amounts among the sort of global shortages. So all that sort of saying, those were absolutely critical for us as an organization, that the whole thinking mindset around lean really saved us as an organization. And I think it was absolutely critical for us to be able to manage through the pandemic. So, some of today's challenges coming out of the pandemic, and I think a lot of healthcare systems and institutions really face this. We have major financial challenges, increased expenses due to, what we spent during the pandemic itself. Again, you saw or heard how many masks we were using on a daily basis, something like 55,000 surgical masks. And then all the different sort of infrastructural things we needed to set up to care for our patients, and the things we needed to do to be able to spend on that. Reimbursement is always decreasing in healthcare. So, our patient population with COVID actually resulted in better sort of reimbursement as that population decreases. What do our financials look like? Obviously, there's the shift between value-based care and taking risk care versus being paid for every episode of care, and an overall sort of declining reimbursement as an organization. We have major staffing challenges. I can't even underscore, what we're seeing in this. There's been major shortages in critical clinical roles, like our nurses, our physicians, our lab technologists, our pharmacy technologists, people just changing careers because of what they went through during the sort of COVID pandemic, competition and being able to go to other health systems in New York City, and just general interest in the healthcare field They were burnt out because they focused on survival for so long. And then there's this also challenge of us working as remotely as an institution. And then quality, safety, and experience. I mean, our patients expect and deserve more. We need to provide more seamless and coordinated and technology enhanced experiences. We need to create more convenient care. And we need to do things like that other institutions or other industries do, like pricing transparency that healthcare has long been, not really good at. And we have a lot of new competitors, both traditional as in health systems and non-traditional as in a lot of startups moving into sort of the healthcare provider space. So lean and continuous improvement moving forward. As I mentioned, some of those challenges, the sort of big wins around reducing our expenses are going to be increasingly difficult to find. We spent a lot of time adjusting our staffing levels to our activity levels after the pandemic sort of surged, and we had to sort of reopen up our doors and fill our beds back up with the patients that we used to care for, which took quite a few months. And we aligned our staffing to those activity levels, eliminating unnecessary spend in our organization and focusing on revenue enhancements are big ticket winners, but things that subside over time. Operational efficiency, high quality and safe care and amazing experiences will be critical for us. So how do we do more, do it better with less? And again, our patients are expecting more and more from us, and really using all the sort of types of improvement to be able to get there. The short PDSA, which is really tied to daily management, long PDSA, which is our value stream improvement, and re-engineering type work. And again, needing improvement and innovation to come from all areas of the organization. So to sort of paint a picture of where we are today, and I wanted to thank LEI and John Shook's Lean Transformation Framework as a way to sort of present our thoughts. These are all the sort of efforts that we are leveraging to contribute to our lean transformation. Obviously, starting with what problem we are trying to solve. We have a lot of priorities as an organization, and I think we have an opportunity in further sort of defining what our true north is and what we're trying to solve. But in sort of today's point, we're at care, providing the best care for our communities, research and education mission, financial challenges, and employee engagement, as I sort of mentioned before. How are we actually improving the work we do? So I mentioned these are our main primary sort of tactics, the ones in blue being ones that are really related to lean transformation, and purple ones being that we have to coordinate with and make sure that lean sort of thinking is embedded and used in those programs. So tiered huddles, daily management and continuous improvement, kata and value stream improvement, looking at services globally and figuring out how we do better. How are we building capability? I mentioned we have a lot of different efforts around building capability of our staff. The Continuous Improvement Academy and an Operations Leadership Academy, and other various system learning efforts that are truly focused on using coaching to build capability within our managers. What leadership behaviors and management systems are required. We have sort of an all hands on deck approach to this. So we're continuing leadership coaching and development and letting people sort of learn to see what lean transformation is all about. We spent a lot of time of focusing on having people go to the workplace and rounding for improvement. We're beginning to define what leader standard work looks like as an organization. And more globally, we've been defining an operating model that's very lean centric, and have been focusing on a lot of the things that we need to do to reduce administrative burden and organizational debt across our organization. And just a couple of values that I think are really important for us. So custom first thinking, really focusing on a problem solving mentality, and a couple of other programs that I think are related to staff engagement around equity, safety culture, wellness and resilience, financial stewardship, and high reliability. So I'll end with this, what keeps me up at night. As I mentioned, I think the one most important thing to say is, in no way is this sort of presentation saying that we're there and where we need to be. There's a lot of opportunity for us to get better at lean transformation, and we need time to focus on this work between leadership, management, and our burnt out care teams. We need to be able to scale fast enough to keep up with the change around us, and we need to be able to manage our environment and culture. And these, I think, are things that worry me and are very critical for this. But I'm confident that we are, really sort of addressing a lot of these different, a lot of different barriers and challenges. So I will stop there and hopefully get time for a question or two.
All right. Thank you, Joe. That's terrific. And I lived through the story with you, so I know. Let's pose a question from Jane Bishop. How did you get the executives to buy in for development? I guess capability development for leadership. Had they seen results in the organization first?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly how what works well really within our organization is if you find a willing partner to sort of pilot out what this really looks like in a particular area, and then usually use that for buy-in and engagement. And that's exactly what happens. So I'm glad you asked it that way. Is we showed what investing in our managers looked like in teaching them how to do root cause problem solving and improvement. They were able to obviously take their areas and see the results that our leadership wanted to see, and that's what started to build engagement across the organization.
Yeah, thank you. And an obvious question, I think, is as all of us experience COVID around the world and our own responses, New York City was its own special challenge. And so the question is, how do you make time for CI or lean work with all of those real challenges you faced for over a year?
Yeah, I think what we realized, I'll mention a couple of sort of ways to think about it is, we've been so focused on the day to day, right? We've also had, in addition to that 2,000 patients that I mentioned, we had another surge of 600 and another surge of 300. So we've had 3 surges over the last 18 months, and people have been focused on the day to day. And I think the joy in work comes from creativity and problem solving. So it's really sort of a tactic for us to be able to get people to enjoy the work they do. And I think the second piece of it is we have to make time for it and be intentional with making sure that when we're putting time into it, we're actually removing burden from what people are doing in their day to day, and making sure that any work we do around lean or continuous improvement is really focused on eliminating burden on staff and ultimately making it easier for them. And that's going to be a hyper focus for us, especially as we're at the lowest staffing levels, we're at burnout, and people are just exhausted from 3 surges of COVID.
All right. I think we'll end there because we have another session to run to, but there are a couple of questions in the Q&A that I will send to you, Joe, so that perhaps you can answer, and we'll include it in the recording. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Joe.